Good morning, all. So today's topic is the meninges, and the meninges are 3 layers of connective tissue that sit between the brain and the skull. So as we know, the brain sits inside the skull. These don't exactly match up in size, but the brain sits inside like this, right? And the skull would be on top of that. So between the brain tissue and the inside of the skull here, there's going to be 3 layers of connective tissue, and those are called the meninges. You also have these same 3 layers on the outside of the spinal cord, between the spinal cord and the vertebral column. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our notes. So the title today is the meninges, and the objective is I can name, locate, describe, and list the functions of the meninges. Okay, so for these notes, we are going to do 2 pictures. So we're going to kind of divide the page in halves going this way. So one picture will take up this space, and the other picture will take up this lower space, okay? So if you're planning your page. So we're going to start by drawing a line going across about 2 lines of space here. We're going to go from this red line here up to this line here and curve across. And then we'll do one a little bit down from that too, just like that, okay? Then we're going to come to the center here, and we're going to do, oh, and I recommend doing this one in pencil because there's going to be a little part that we want to erase. So then we're going to come here and do a little triangle kind of shape with slightly curved in parts like this. Okay. Then from our triangle shape, we're going to draw a line going out this way and a line going out that way. And then from our triangle shape, we're also going to draw a line going down. And remember, we're only using about half the page for this picture. Okay. And then from there, we're going to draw a little corner shape coming in here. And then a little corner shape coming in here. Okay. And then after the corner shape, we are going to do a shape that goes from here. And then it has a little extension and 2 little things at the end like this, and then it comes back here, comes back down. Same on the other side, up, extends across, little thing on the end, comes back down. And then we are going to draw in what kind of looks like the cerebral cortex that we drew yesterday. So and then we want to just go back, and the part we want to erase is the little line in here. Just to show that this thing is passing through those 2 lines right there. So the little stick out part is passing through those 2 lines. Okay. So then finally we're going to take one line, and just like we did yesterday with the cerebral cortex, we're going to trace the cerebral cortex by drawing a squiggle all through here. And then for the pencil part, the last thing we want to put in is in this shape here, the one with the little thing sticking out of it. We want to draw some cross hatching. So this part up here, the first section here is the skull. And this section in here is each hemisphere of the brain. Okay. And then we want to give this color to indicate what's going on. So this is our cerebral cortex here. So this part we are going to, I know I used that light purple color yesterday for the cerebral cortex for the gray matter, but I found my brown today, and that kind of matches better with how they tend to do brain models. Okay, so we're going to make one single line border around the edge of that cerebral cortex. So just trace in a different color, one single line border. Or if you don't have another color, just kind of darken. Maybe you can color in your cerebral cortex kind of pale. And then just make like a darker line around the edge of that cerebral cortex. So something like that. So that's our first layer. And then we need to draw in, so that's going to be called the Pia Mater, but we'll label all that in a second. And then we need our middle layer, which is called the Arachnoid Mater. That's the one with all the cross hatching. So this next layer that we're coloring in is called the Arachnoid Mater. Arachnoid means spider-like, and it's because these cross-hatching parts look like spider webs. In reality, they're protein fibers, but the anatomists thought they looked like spider webs, so they called it the spider-like mother. So our last layer is this Dura Mater here. So we'll go over these lines. Man, I want that green layer to pop more. So I'm just gonna go back over that Pia Mater because I feel like we can't really see it. So that was that green layer. That was right outside the cerebral cortex. Okay. Sweet. So then we're going to draw the same thing for our spinal cord, and then we will label the 3 layers. So for the spinal cord, we're going to go like this. So I'm just going to draw it a little off to the side so that we have space here to make our legend. So for the spinal cord, we did a little crack in the back, and then like that. Okay, and we do that little circle right here. And then we drew the U across the back, and then we came down in the front and we drew the horns. Remember the horns? Ooh, this horn is really a lot bigger than the other horn. Let's even that out if we can. Okay, so there's our spinal cord. And remember that inside here, that was our gray matter. Okay, so then on the outside of that spinal cord, we are going to have our Pia Mater. So we are going to draw in our green line just like we had on the previous drawing. So the green line is going to trace the outside of the spinal cord. Okay, so that's the equivalent green line. Then we're going to do the arachnoid line. So this circle around the spinal cord. And we're going to fill that with the cross hatching again, because that's the arachnoid. And then on the outside of that, we're going to put the Dura Mater. So the outside is the Dura Mater. And then just to emphasize, outside of that, we're going to draw. So we'll make this a cervical vertebra because they have a bifurcated spinous process. So let's go ahead and fill in our colors for Arachnoid Mater. So Arachnoid Mater is this light green one here. And then the Dura Mater. Okay. And just to show that we know that this is the gray matter, we can color this in with the brown to show that it's the gray matter, just like that cerebral cortex. Okay, so now we know we have our skull and our brain, and so this here is a vertebra, so we can label that a vertebra. And this here we know is the spinal cord. So, in the central nervous system, what we notice is that between the brain and the skull, and between the spinal cord and the vertebra, we have these three layers that are called the meninges. So the innermost layer, the one that we've done in green, so the innermost layer here is called the Pia Mater. And then the middle layer is called the Arachnoid Mater. And the outermost layer is called the Dura Mater. So we can name them. We need to be able to name them. So Pia Mater, Arachnoid Mater, Dura Mater. Pia Mater, Arachnoid Mater, Dura Mater. Then we need to be able to locate them. So by locate, I mean I want you to tell me that the Pia Mater is the innermost layer directly adhering to the surface of the brain, and the innermost layer directly adhering to the surface of the spinal cord. I want you to be able to tell me that the Arachnoid Mater is the middle layer in between. So middle layer here, and the Dura Mater is the outermost layer, outside layer, okay? So if I said which one is right underneath the skull, which one is right underneath the vertebra, just deep to the vertebra, deep to the skull, you could tell me it's the Dura Mater. Which one is directly adhering to the brain or the spinal cord? That's the Pia Mater. And which one is in the middle? The Arachnoid Mater. We need to be able to describe them a little bit. So the Dura Mater, its name means tough mother. It's the hardest one, the tough mother. So it's made of a very firm connective tissue. Think of, the envelope at the post office. It's not like the super papery one. It's kind of like, it can wiggle a little bit. I need to find an example of it. So that envelope is how I think of the Dura Mater. It's kind of fibrous, but it has a lot of, it can resist tearing very well. Then the Arachnoid Mater, that's going to be a layer full of collagen fibers. It's not as thick at all as the Dura Mater. It's a rather thin tissue. And then the Pia Mater is the thinnest tissue of all. It's called the Arachnoid Mater means spider-like mother. So these collagen fibers look like somebody thought they looked like spider webs. It's a very thin tissue, but it does have that spider web-like appearance on histology. And then finally the Pia Mater, the innermost layer, it's only one cell layer thick, and it's very, very thin, very, very delicate. You almost don't even know it's there. And if we ever get a chance to touch some brains, we can check all these out. Okay, so those are our three layers described. And then for the functions, The Dura Mater attaches, does two main things. It's protection, so because it's the thickest one, it's some protection for the brain, and also it attaches the brain to the skull. So when you go to, if you have to take out somebody's brain during an autopsy, when you go to try to remove the brain, so you open up the skull, you crack open the skull, and you'll see that the Dura Mater is very adhered to the inside of the skull. So you peel the Dura Mater away from the skull so that you can get out the brain. And then with the Arachnoid Mater, its function is that it helps with the cerebrospinal fluid flow. So it actually has a space that's in between the Arachnoid Mater and the Pia Mater called the subarachnoid space, and cerebrospinal fluid flows in there. I suppose we could, cerebrospinal fluid flows inside there, and so it ends up going back into the circulation here through these things called arachnoid granulations. So actually, let's label those. These little things sticking out are called arachnoid villi or granulations. And that's how cerebrospinal fluid gets back into the general circulation, because there's venous blood flowing through here. This is called a dural sinus. So there's fluid inside here in the subarachnoid space, and that's going to go back into circulation via these arachnoid villi or granulations, which are these little things sticking out. And then finally we have the Pia Mater directly adhering to the surface of the brain. As far as function, the main function for the Pia Mater is that actually in the spinal cord, and we could draw those in here, in the spinal cord it forms these little things called denticulate ligaments that help anchor the spinal cord to the... So the main function there is that they help anchor the spinal cord to the vertebral column. Okay, so those are little extensions of Pia Mater that go all the way out to the spinal, to the vertebra, and they help anchor the spinal cord in the vertebral column. Okay, great. So if you think of meningitis, you probably have heard of meningitis. So now we know menin is a root, meaning meninges, and itis we learned is a suffix, meaning inflammation of. So now we can put it together that meningitis is inflammation of the meninges. So usually it's these two, the Arachnoid Mater and the Pia Mater. You can get bacterial or viral meningitis and cause inflammation of these layers